There has never been a better time than now to come join the Bellisio Foods team. Bellisio has a new contract in place with plenty of awesome perks for their employees. From increased wages, access to the free health clinic, vacation after 6 months, and much more, Bellisio Foods is committed to putting their employees first. For more information or to apply, visit BellisioFoods.com/careers. Take advantage of these great new employee benefits and join the Bellisio team today. Visit BellisioFoods.com/careers to learn more.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the morning show right here on Main Street TV. Happy New Year!
Hey, we made it into 2022. Aren't we blessed people?
We are blessed people, and gosh, I feel like so much has happened since I haven't been here and James hasn't been here, and you all had to fill in for us, right?
Well,
a little bit.
James had it all set up with some of the best of the best.
He did.
And I think that went over very well. He made some very good selections there.
Yes, I got to see some of them.
That can work. You got an archive.
That's right. So thank you, James, for putting in all that hard work so that we could all get a little bit of R&R. But Pete is here today to do the morning news update, and we may have another special guest here to do more of the morning news update.
Right. Well, we do have quite a bit to go over, things that have happened, and also looking ahead because of the new year. There's some things happening because we turned the calendar.
Yes.
And so, yes, indeed, from my staff, we're going to have Alex Shope, our editorial assistant. He's been part of the staff since late last spring. Just does a super job.
The big fella. The
big fella does a lot of. He does a lot of stuff on the computer, moves a lot of stuff volume-wise, but he's had enough time to also branch out and do some writing and reporting out in the field. And ergo, he did a wonderful interview with Cheryl Thiessen, who is the Jackson-Vinton Community Action Executive Director for many years. Well, she retired at the end of the year. December 31st was officially her last day.
Yeah.
Did a nice story there in the paper on the front page. And she deserves her time in the spotlight. And so we want to give that to her on TV too as well. So
Sure.
Alex interviewed her. He's going to talk about that interview and about her career in just a few minutes. We'll start out with COVID, if that's okay with you.
Man, oh man. I was going to say, there is just
don't you wish that
it.
when the ball dropped, it dropped on top of COVID too?
Wouldn't you?
But
I mean, now we're going into another year of this. Awesome.
Yeah, Omicron and what's left of the Delta. One of the things that's unanswered for me, Jennifer, we won't talk about this too much. We got all this local news. But one of the things I wonder is, we know the Omicron is very contagious, all right?
Very.
And we know that the Delta was there too, causing a lot of trouble. Are all these new cases Omicron or are they Delta? Or is it a combination? I'm sure it's a combination, but I wonder what the breakdown is.
And I don't know. How did they know?
I don't think they do know.
It was a few weeks ago now, and so it's obviously changed a lot. But there was a pretty interesting study in like the Midwest. The percentage of new cases that were Omicron weren't that high, but like in New York and California, like on the coast, it went from like, I don't know, 10% of new cases to like 80% of new cases in 2 weeks or something like that.
I'll bet you it's completely different now. What do you want to bet that since then?
Well, I mean, that's how fast it changed there. And so we're just...
This sucker's contagious.
Right. Well, you wonder that when you do a test, and I've been tested, but I know you have too, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. I wonder when you do the test, if it's positive. Of course, mine was negative, fortunately. I had to do that to be able to go on a cruise a month ago. You wonder if they're able to tell you you've got Delta or Omicron or something else. Not sure they'll tell you.
I don't know. And I don't know if the tests, like if you have to go to a certain place to find that out or not. That's a good question.
It's a
we
detail.
should get a hold of our friends at Holzer or something and ask them about that.
Right, because the hospitals,
how do they know?
Well, they release statistics on how many COVID patients they have, and of course, the health department locally and statewide, they do the numbers thing, but they don't break that down. I wonder if they know and they just don't break it down, or it's just too much work or a detail that's not worth chasing.
All I can tell you is I have had more folks that I know test positive in the last week that are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, boosted, the whole 9 yards, and it's just seems like it's just not. I mean, I'm sure it's helping, but it's a bit scary when you start thinking about it.
With the Omicron the way it is, supposedly a lot of the cases are mild, and the majority of cases affecting people 40 and under.
Yeah.
You have to think that there are many, many, many undiagnosed, unconfirmed cases.
100%.
In addition to these staggering numbers we're seeing.
Because you think about, you just get a little sniffle or a cold or whatever, and you're like, whatever.
Yeah, that's what you used to be able to say.
Right. Now
it's not just about you is the problem.
Yep.
But anyway, I guess one of the big news developments on the COVID front locally was this was an announcement that Jackson Superintendent of Schools Phil Howard came out with at the end of last week.
Okay.
The mask mandate is back in place at Jackson High School.
Doesn't surprise me.
Right. Of course, if you go back to the start of the school year, Jackson was the only local school district of our 4 districts that started off with a mask mandate.
Yes.
Now, later on, towards the Christmas vacation, he was able to lift that at the high school only. He didn't lift it at the middle school or the elementary school, mainly because of the concern about some of the younger kids had not been vaccinated
Well, sure,
yet.
yeah.
Right.
'Cause they're not able to.
His hope was that at the end of Christmas vacation, sometime early in January or by the end of January, they would be able to lift the mask mandate at the other schools too, because of the direction that it was going. Well, instead, Superintendent Howard did a robocall, went out on Thursday at 6 p.m. and announcing to all the parents, guardians, et cetera, that are affected at the high school, staff and everybody, that the mask mandate was back in place. So today, first day of school after the holiday break, mask wearing is mandated at Jackson High School. It never has not been mandated at the middle school and the elementary schools.
Gotcha.
So that is in place now, and that is going to also be in effect for all visitors. So when you have the big events at the high school, and they're probably going to control that. As far as I know, they're still going to have basketball games. That's the big winter sport. You're going to have to wear a mask, just like you did
I was going to ask
last
you about
basketball
that.
season. Exactly.
Sporting events.
You have to wear the mask. The only people that won't have to wear the mask are the players and the referees when they're refereeing. If you're on the sideline, I think you've got to have a mask on. If you're on
hard
the bench,
to blow that whistle with a mask on, isn't it?
Yeah, the coaches will have to wear a mask. I mean, if it goes like it did last year. Now, I did a little survey on social media and also to see if anything had come in on email. To my knowledge, the other local schools have not put in a mask mandate.
Okay.
If they have, please let us know. And if anyone knows locally, and they can maybe text us or Facebook message us, we'll correct that. But the Wellston City Schools, the Oak Hill Union Local Schools, and the Benton County Schools, nothing as of last night that I had seen that they were changing anything about not having a mask mandate. Right now, they do not have a mask mandate at those schools. But Phil Howard was basing it on the increase in local cases and the fact that he gave me some numbers. There weren't that many cases they had when Christmas vacation started on the 17th, but the number of cases that are happening.
I know several high school kids that are sick at home right now.
Right. Well, there was 2 instances that we know of publicly where the COVID did affect operations at the school. The Jackson boys basketball team was sidelined last week they did not even practice. I understand that there was just maybe 1 case, at the most 2, but there were exposures and there were quarantines and some cheerleaders, I guess, were affected too, and families were affected. And when your family's affected, a parent's affected, the kid is exposed at least or whatever.
Sure.
So there was at least 1 case. There was quarantines that were in place, and there were exposures that could lead to potential quarantines. And so a decision was made by Superintendent Howard. I'm sure he approved at least at the very top, if not made it. No practice, no games last week. 2 games were postponed or canceled. We'll see if they're replayed.
Okay.
They weren't even able to practice. I put a word out to Athletic Director Pat Stevens this morning, not heard from him back, but the plan was to go back to normal today, resume practice, and have games for the Jackson boys basketball team. This did not involve any other sport or athletic or extracurricular activity. Of course, they pretty much slowed during the Christmas holiday break anyway. So this will be a very key time when everybody goes back to school, not just at Jackson, but at all of our local schools.
Hey, speaking of sporting events, how about the Buckeyes?
How about the Bengals?
How about the Bengals? My mind was blown. Like 2 days of crazy football. Like just.
If you're an Ohio sports fan, I mean,
holy moly,
man! It was something. Now, how many people early on in the Ohio State game thought I might just want to turn this sucker off?
So let me just tell you something. Jamie and I were in Columbus, and we went to a brewery, and we were watching it, and it was halftime, and literally the entire place cleared out and left, and we were the only ones there, and we didn't have another place to watch the rest of the game, like where we were staying. So but we didn't want the staff to have to stay open for us. So luckily we found a little corner bar around the corner from where we were staying, and it was packed and fun. But thank God we went there. I told him if we'd have gone home at halftime and not gotten to see the second half of that game, I would have been so mad.
Well, you could have also listened to it on WYRO 98.7. We could have done that. Paul Keels does a great call.
Could have done that.
Does a great call. But, it was a glorious comeback. No doubt about it. The receivers, Jackson Smith and Najigba, and, of course, the quarterback, C.J. Stroud. Kurt Herbstreit was all over this. Receivers were making great plays, and that receiver, can there be a better one in the country than him? But he was putting the ball exactly where it needed to be.
He was. They finally got to clicking, and we were playing without several key players.
A lot of players.
When you don't have Olave to throw to, and I mean, obviously there's other talent too, but he's definitely a go-to.
I had a great feeling of dread because I just am looking at all the factors. First of all, Ohio State's still numb about losing to you-know-who.
Yeah.
All right. I won't even say the team up north. Losing that game and all the gloating that they have done since then.
Yep.
Which you can't blame them because it's been a while.
Yeah.
They didn't have hair on their chest last time they could gloat.
I mean, you guys saw the score of their bowl game.
Yeah.
Well, that was too bad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway. You question whether the Buckeyes' heart were in the game.
Yeah.
Because they don't, unfortunately, their standard is high on what they play for.
Well, and you're talking about Utah, who'd never been to the Rose Bowl.
Were they excited?
So they were just jacked up.
And 80% of the attendance there, the Buckeyes faithful, turned in bowl ticket applications, 7,000 of them that they could have. And that was before you even try to get tickets after all your allotment is gone.
Which is very
there just wasn't a lot of excitement about it. One report out that Ryan Day is being courted by the Chicago Bears, all that stuff. And then you have Garrett Wilson, Olave, one of the best linemen.
Yep.
And then you have a bunch of other people that are injured or for whatever reason aren't playing.
Correct.
And then you're playing against a team where it's the game of their life. It's not stacked up right.
The odds are stacked against you for sure.
Right. So we give them credit for coming back in the second half, even though the first half was, a textbook case of the worst defense you could ever see in your life.
Butt whooping is what that was. Yeah.
Exactly. To Utah. But anyway.
And Joe Burrow. Awesome.
Wasn't he something? 30 out of 39 for some 400 yards against not just anybody, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl finalists last year. Who have been clicking, by the way, the second half of the season. So the Bengals,
2 days of great football. If you didn't get to see either one of those games, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Bengals AFC North champs. How about that? We don't have to worry about what the Browns and Steelers do tonight. But anyway, we'll get back to COVID real quick. In Vinton County, this report was put out last week. We have not got a report from the Jackson County Health Department for a week now, so we can't give you their numbers. But in Vinton County, the number of cases there, and this was a report that was issued on December the 27th. I'm guessing they'll have another report today that we'll get on. But they reported 39 active cases and 3 hospitalizations, and this was down just a little bit from the week before.
Okay.
But listen to these stats put out by the Adena Regional Medical Center. That is the That is their hospital in Chillicothe where, their COVID patients go. And Alex Shope did this story for us, and they've done 2 reports. Adena has a statistical updates in the last 2 weeks, and the last one came out on the 30th. And they had, of the 58 cases, I'm going back to Vinton County. Of the 58 cases, the last 2 weeks in Vinton County, only 12 of those cases involved people 60 and older. The majority of the cases, 30 some out of the 58 new cases, were people 39 and younger. So that is an eye-opener, a snapshot of who's getting affected. But to Adena now, 47 total people were hospitalized at Adena Regional Medical Center with COVID. 47 inpatients, COVID related. Of those cases, 41 of the people were unvaccinated. So once again, driving home the fact that the vaccinations do make a difference in the severity of the illness. It's troubling that it's not going to spare you totally, because there's lots of people vaccinated, triple vaccinated.
It's happening now. It is. But
And there were 5 cases that were in the ICU. So there's people really sick, and we know that there's been COVID-related deaths. But of the 5 people in Adena that were of the 6 cases that were ICUs in Adena, 5 were unvaccinated. So once again, underscoring the importance of the vaccination. And we told you about the basketball program there at Jackson. The probate juvenile court, Justin Skaggs, last Wednesday,
I saw that.
shut down the court for the remainder of the last week of the year. I think they were going to be off Friday anyway, but he closed the probate juvenile court down Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and they were supposed to come back today. He did confirm to me yesterday that they are back in session today.
Okay.
They had 1 staff case, but when you have a staff of 4 or 5 and
they work a little close
you work
together,
closely together, he decided based on CDC guidance that the best thing he could do was quarantine. And so, that's what he did. All right, well, we promised you that Alex Shope would be here. We're going to bring him over right now.
Come on over, big guy.
Alex, have a seat over here. Alex wrote a very important front page story about a very important lady that a lot of people probably don't know a whole lot about unless they've been a client and served by the Jackson-Vinton Community Action Agency, or they're involved in government and public service and like that. But Cheryl Thiessen, Executive Director of the Jackson-Vinton Community Action Agency for many years, retired effective at the end of the calendar year, December 31st. And
there she is.
She has, there she is. She's on the left, and she is there with Megan Sowers, who is a replacement. Of course, a lot of people know Megan. Megan was most recently the principal at Wellston High School. And so they've got somebody who knows about administration and management, who was available and knows the community for sure to hop into that spot. And Megan, as we speak, is in charge of the Jackson-Vinton Community Action Agency. As I told you, Alex has branched out, has done some reporting, and has done a great job. And one of these big assignments recently was to interview Cheryl Thiessen, about her service, about her pending retirement and whatever. And that story was in a recent edition on the front page, and nobody
That's exciting.
knows more about Cheryl in our news department than Alex. So I'm going to bring him in to talk about Cheryl Thiessen and the impact that she had on Jackson and Vinton counties for a number of years. Now, she might not be as well known as some of the political figures that get elected, the county officials, the superintendents, but she's had a very important job.
And a huge impact in the community.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
So, Alex, what was I know that you went into it cold. You had not met Cheryl Thiessen before. What did you think of Cheryl Thiessen, and what can you tell our viewers and listeners out there about what an important role she played in our communities?
Well, Cheryl was just a lovely, wonderful woman. It's really nice to have met Cheryl and just to pick her thoughts on it. She's been executive director of community action since 2000, I think it was, and
a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah.
Just a couple.
We don't like to think about that though. But she's been executive director since 2000, and I think 35 years total, which Community Action was incepted in 1965. So effectively, she's been part of the organization for half of its existence. And she was. Speaking to her was like speaking to Community Action itself. It's I spoke to the president of the board of trustees for JCVAI and JVCAI, excuse me, and that was Tim Jones. And I spoke to our commissioner, John Hensler, which a couple great guys as well. But the general consensus is that she's going to be very, very, very difficult to replace.
Yep.
Right.
And
Sorry, I was
I'm
just
sorry.
thinking to myself, in case people don't know, could you explain a little bit about what Community Action does?
A lot of people, I mean,
Because
don't know.
again, it's
They don't know unless somehow they've been
important.
served by Community Action.
Correct.
But we had to do a little homework ourselves on that.
yeah.
well,
fill
that
us
was
in.
something. That was a point that Cheryl brought across, was that Jackson Vinton Community Action is the best kept secret of our counties.
I'd say so. Yeah.
But yeah, she was very she was very descriptive, I should say, in what they did. JVCAI, I always get those letters mixed
That's
up.
all right.
But they have, I think, 8 Head Starts. That's the number that's coming off the top of my head. 8 Head Starts across our counties, which cater to like 200 children who may have received these services otherwise. They do a lot of weatherization programs, which just insulate and help homes of needy families and such.
Correct.
So helps with energy costs, and especially in these cold winter months.
Yes.
When we have them.
Yeah, right.
We're there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
Today we are.
Someday they show up, but especially in these cold winter months and days and things, it really helps people stay warm.
Yes.
Or cool in the summer as well. They also do a lot of weatherization in the summer. Really, they're just really adamant in helping people and making sure that no one goes without. They serve just all kinds of people throughout Jackson and Benton.
What a
They're
rewarding
really-
career that would be.
Right. And the whole Community Action, this is just not here, but across the country. It's kind of a product of the War on Poverty program that came out of the Lyndon Johnson administration. Congress
Okay.
passed a bunch of money and whatever. And Community Action it's not technically government, but it's kind of quasi-government because they count on a lot of government funding for their programs.
the money,
A lot
yes.
of different funnels of money coming in for these different programs. That's why it's so challenging for somebody like Cheryl to pull it all together.
Yes.
For those people who are not aware, their main office is in the old Wellston Junior High School there on New York Avenue. But they operate
Okay.
from 8 or 9, I think, different places, Alex. They have all the Head Start centers, several Head Start centers. The one in Jackson, the biggest one, is at the old Parkview School. And, they have other places they operate. A WIC program is down on Huron Street in Jackson. And they have department heads for each of these positions. And somehow Cheryl and now Megan has to ride herd over all this, the funding, the
Right.
administration, the coordination, getting the word out on things and so forth. And they have monthly meetings, and there's people on the board that are involved in government, people who are involved in poverty programs, people from the private sector. I imagine it is a tremendous challenge to pull that all together, and it's to help people, and they help people behind the scenes. I mean, it's a public thing. It's out there. They put the word out. They've got a website. They put out news releases, but it's not. It's basically poverty programs. And when you say that, it's just not for a small segment of the population, because poverty programs do affect what we would consider low income and even middle income people,
Right.
because there's eligibility there. And a lot of people may not even realize that they're eligible for some of the programs that Community Action does.
I think you're exactly right.
Right, but I know that Alex really enjoyed talking to Cheryl. And Cheryl very much appreciated the story that Alex did. And Cheryl Thiessen, I will say this is just a guess on my part, but I've been around, so I'm allowed to make some of these grandiose statements. She is probably one of the one of the more underappreciated public officials in Jackson County. I'll call her public officials because she works with the public.
Sure.
And so, she deserves some time in the spotlight. I know it was hard for her to retire because she really did love community action and the mission. She was invested, and I think Alex got that idea from talking with her.
Absolutely.
Well, all the grants and things that she was outlining and everything, she definitely did not make it look challenging. She had a very firm grasp over.
But it is.
Oh yes, extremely. Because like I said, she started rattling off grants and things and everything that Community Action provides for Jackson. I mean, again, like Pete said, Community Action is responsible for a ton of grant funding that comes through Jackson and Benton counties. But the way she was rattling off and everything, it was impressive. I was very astounded just by how well she had things in hand.
It's second nature to her. The rest of us are looking at it like, you got to be kidding me that this lady's doing all this. But
well, I think a replacement as well, Miss Sowers. I think she was in very good hands. I mean, experience is the best teacher, and she had certainly a lot of it. Miss Thiessen did
for sure. So what are her plans now for retirement? Did she say?
She mentioned briefly. She wants to travel. She wants more time with her husband, her grandchildren, which it is I assume the end game of any of this. But she did mention she wanted to travel with her husband and possibly her grandkids. But I'm all for that, and I really do. Just from the time I had to speak with her, I really wish the best for her, and I really hope she finds all the happiness in the world she's looking for.
That's right. Sounds like she deserves it.
Yes. Well, that front page story that Alex wrote that goes into more detail than what we're able to talk about on television was on the front page of our Wednesday, December 29th paper, I think. And so, if you had a copy of that, you can see that. Of course, that story also online as well. And so, you want to hear more about Cheryl Thiessen and her contributions to the local communities in both Jackson and Benton counties.
Absolutely.
That's a good place to go. So, Alex, we thank you very much for dropping by.
Yeah.
I know from talking with Alex this morning, I put him on a bunch of other things. So he is a busy young man, but want to say here on television how much I appreciate having Alex on the staff.
Yes.
And what he did with the Cheryl Thiessen story, just an example of what he can do and what he brings to Total Media and the Telegram.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time to join us this morning.
Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you saying that.
Come back and see us anytime.
I mean it, sir. I mean it. All right. Well, very good. We'll get into some other bad things now.
Great.
There's bad
Don't leave.
I know. It changes as soon as Alex steps out of the picture.
No, they're already getting the shepherd's crook out, so I better.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, we better hit some crime. All right.
Okay.
Better hit some crime.
Well, we've had some interesting ones lately. So.
All right. Well, this happened. This happened late last week on Thursday. Let's see. Was it Thursday? Yes, Thursday, December the 30th. And this was just after we got the paper out. We had to do the paper a day early because of the holiday. But this is online, and we'll have it in the paper on Wednesday.
I think I know what you're going to talk about. And I had a friend that got stuck in the middle, like literally in the middle of this thing. Yeah.
Right.
And she was like, it was nuts.
No, we heard about it. A couple of our own employees were witnesses. But what we're talking about is a 3-county vehicle pursuit involving law enforcement and a North Carolina driver who I think we can safely say made some bad decisions.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay. the North Carolina, this all happened on late Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
Started in Gallia County, in eastern Gallia County, not too far from the river there. And this pursuit started there, came from Gallia County into Jackson County, all the way through Jackson County on US Route 35, the busiest highway we have, and then into Ross County, almost all the way to Chillicothe before it ended. The good news part of it is that nobody got hurt, nobody got killed. There were some people that probably raised their eyebrows along the way that saw it.
I would say so, yeah.
But it all started at 4:38 p.m. when troopers from the Gallipolis post tried to pull over this driver from North Carolina, his vehicle, because he was, let's see, how fast was he going? He was going 94 in a 70-mile-per-hour zone. 94, okay? That's not fudging on the speed limit a little bit, which some people try to do.
That's not 73, that's 94.
I'm hoping he wasn't on cruise control. But anyway, 94 miles per hour. For whatever reason, he didn't want to be pulled over. And so, he fled onto some other roads, state routes that weren't as busy as 35, but then he got back on 35. So the chase is on, starting with the Highway Patrol in Gallia County. Then the Rio Grande Police is involved. In Jackson County, the Jackson Post of the State Highway Patrol, they take over in Jackson County. And then the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, and then all the way through Jackson County, our own Christina Bryan, who works in graphics, she saw this when she was driving on the way home. She was one who let me know about it. Stacy Walters, who runs Zip Printing here, her husband ran into it in Gallia County when he was on the way to the ball game.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right. So
my friend ran into it in Ross County.
I'm not surprised.
When the strips got thrown across the road.
That was the climax.
Yes.
They put out stop sticks in Ross County near the US Route 50 interchange with US 35. If you're not familiar, that's just outside Chillicothe.
Yep, just this side of Chillicothe.
Exactly. And for whatever reason, even after 60 miles of running, somehow this driver decided then that it was over. Part of it was because he had two male passengers in the car who were saying, "Please stop, this is crazy.
Pull over."
They were worried about losing their lives or whatever. But the driver is Dylan Peoples of Raleigh, North Carolina, age 23 years old. He is going to face charges of failure to comply. And now get this, they initially charged kidnapping because, he would not stop the car, and he has these people.
Because they were wanted out.
Right. I don't know whether that will stick or not, but it's on there right now. Also possession of marijuana. Now, if he is worried about having marijuana in the car.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, just pull over and take your lumps, man.
In this case, at least the information that I was given, it wasn't that there was a big quantity of drugs in the car. It wasn't that he was on parole or a wanted felon or anything like that, or that he shot somebody or he stole a car. He just made a poor decision.
And I'm going to drive 100 miles an hour down the road for 60 miles. Running from cops.
I know that you've traveled a little bit, and probably you and Jamie have gone places driving. Ohio is not the place to try to speed.
No, especially not Jackson County.
Compared to some of the other states.
Correct.
Just anecdotally looking at, along the road where you see troopers or state police or whatever from these other states.
We are well policed.
Right. I've always said that the Jackson bypass is the best patrolled section of highway in the world, perhaps.
Holy moly. Yes, it is.
Right. And that's to the credit of the Highway Patrol.
Absolutely.
Because they don't make it up. If you're going too fast and they pull you over, I'm sure it's legit. Maybe
you deserve what you get.
Right, exactly. So
because they're going to be there.
It is 60 miles per hour in the Jackson bypass, and not 65 or 70. So you got
or 90.
Yeah, you got to remember that. Even if you're a local, you got to think about that. All right, so that's one of the crime stories. Here is another crime story that broke last week. We reported it in our weekend edition. It actually happened on Tuesday, the 28th. This was how we've talked how the Jackson Municipal Court Probation Department does probation visits.
Yes.
And they usually often are doing it because they suspect other new criminal activity, and they got the right to do it because somebody's on probation.
Correct.
Well, in conjunction with the Wellston Police Department and the Sheriff's Office, all three agencies were involved. They did a probation check at apartment 75 in the Bundy Heights apartment complex in Wellston.
Okay.
And when they arrived at the apartment, contact was made with a resident of that apartment. His name is Matthew D. Perry. And what they ended up finding there, and there is Matthew Perry's mugshot
Okay.
or his probation shot, not sure which, but that is Matthew Perry. They found about the worst drug that you can find. They found fentanyl. Not only fentanyl,
Matthew.
but fentanyl that they say was packaged for sale. So remember, possession is one thing, trafficking is another. And to be charged with trafficking, this is something, I've learned from, covering the news. That doesn't mean that they catch you selling it to somebody. If there's circumstantial evidence to show that you've got a quantity and it's packaged in a way, they assume that you're selling it, and that can stick in court. You get trafficking rather than
Sure.
possession, and trafficking is worse than possession.
Because there's one thing to have it to use yourself, another thing to sell it. Yep.
Well, anyway, he was charged with possession of drugs for having it, and also complicity to trafficking in drugs. So, obviously they feel that maybe other person or persons are involved in that, but he was put in the Jackson County Correctional Facility. Also, of course, there is a probation violation involved there because he was on probation. They did a search of the apartment, and that led to the discovery of the approximate 7 grams of fentanyl. They call it suspected fentanyl because they always do the field. They not only do a field test, they do a chemical test. And, those always come a little later, but
Sure.
they felt safe in doing the charges. Okay, another interesting case in Jackson to talk about. This is a crazy, Jennifer. You own businesses, so you better be careful. At the old KFC building on Main Street.
Yes.
You know where that is? At
Yeah.
the corner of Main and Harris and Carr right there. It was discovered last week that somebody had tried to steal or stolen part of the air conditioning unit on the roof of the building. Somebody had gotten up there at some point.
On Main Street?
On Main Street, and taken some of the metal from that air conditioning unit or some of the parts. And that building, of course, is unoccupied. It's been for sale
Sure.
since KFC built a new restaurant. But still, there it is on a busy street. And somebody was up there at some point. I didn't get a timeline on when this might have occurred, but it was discovered last week. Not too long after that, they discovered also at the Parks Edge Event Center, which of course is owned here by our companies, that it appeared that a rooftop AC unit there had also been tampered with. Now, it did not affect Parks Edge Event Center because that air conditioning unit was apparently no longer in service. It was an older one.
Yeah.
But at some point, somebody, the police feel, and a representative of the building felt, had tampered with that. Jackson Police Chief Brett Hinch, I didn't want to make more of this than what it was, but his concern was that there may be somebody or somebodies that are targeting this now. And they could be targeting rooftop air conditioning units for the parts, or more likely just for the scrap metal.
The metal.
But it still throws you. The Parks Edge Event Center, just down the street from the old KFC building, they're on East Main Street. It floors you that somebody might have been up there on the top of the building. They're sure that there was, as a matter of fact, especially at the KFC location. So not only are we reporting, not only did Interim Chief Hinch want to report this, he feels that it may have happened already at some other places and people don't even realize it. Maybe you're not running your air conditioning in the winter months, or maybe you've got an unoccupied commercial building. He feels that these maybe have been and will be targeted. And so they're asking people, property owners, people who are leasing property, to be vigilant and also to maybe check their rooftops to see if there's been any mischief done. So, can you believe that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, these days you can believe anything. Well, we do want to report that the Jackson City budget was approved. This was worth reporting. And I know that sounds like mundane, end of the year, first of the year stuff, but this was the first time that Jackson City Council and the administration was able to get a full year budget approved before the end of the calendar year. The typical thing is, and not that this is bad, but the typical thing is to pass a temporary budget because you're still trying to work things out. You're figuring up your revenue, you're working out details. What are you going to spend money on? What are you not going to spend money on? And council and administration were on the same page enough that they were able to work that out before the end of the year. So They were proud of themselves. The budget is bigger this year, but Mayor Randy Evans is quick to say that it's not because, they've become spenders. It's because they have more money to spend and they're going to use it.
Yeah.
They have the income tax, $2.2 million brought in by the income tax in its first year, the city income tax.
Nice.
And then also, this money also goes into the city budget, money that you get from the outside, like, the federal money that's coming in because of COVID that the governments are getting, plus grants.
Right.
All this is part of money that you can spend. It's not the local tax money or revenue, but it's part of your budget. That's another reason why the budget is bigger. So on the income tax this year, $2.2 million brought in. You saw what some of the results are. Probably the most tangible thing, of course, is paving that took place. Randy Evans, tentatively at least, is hoping to spend. He spent $650,000 in paving last year. He would like to spend $1 million this year on paving.
Wow.
So, what gets paved will be determined a little bit later or announced later when we get closer to when you can do paving because of the weather. So, the city officials very happy that they were able.
Broadway.
Well, Broadway. Are
Sorry.
you talking about down there by Bellisio?
Yeah.
Okay. There's something that I know about that, and I'm sure that they've been a bug in the mayor.
Don't drive a small car down through there because you'll disappear.
Well, and this has been addressed at council meetings as a by the way thing, because somebody said, well, what about the railroad crossing there? What about this and that? They are going to not do paving immediately there because of construction at Bellisio Foods.
Yeah, I think they have some infrastructure stuff to do
There's been an
first.
expansion improvement project at Bellisio for it seems like the last 5 to 7 years. And so you've got big trucks and construction equipment coming in and out of there. They don't want a new paving job tore up. So unless they do some patching and things like that, they're thinking more like 2023 for that, when all the Bellisio projects they think will be done. So, but we'll see, because the 2022 agenda has not been set for paving. But you put in your bid there, girl, because I'm betting you go right down Broadway on the way home, don't you?
Yeah, most of the time, yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, so good news for the city of Jackson that they got the budget done. Speaking of Jackson City Council, at the last meeting, they gave fond farewells to 2 council members who are not continuing: 3rd Ward Councilwoman Debbie Biggs and at-large Councilman Dan Call. Debbie Biggs resigned at the beginning of December because she has moved from the community. She did actually get elected to a new term, but you can't serve if you don't live in town anymore, and she doesn't live in town anymore, so she resigned. They'll have to pick a replacement for her. Dan Call had hoped to run another term or serve another term, but in a 7-way race for at-large council, he did not make the cut. 3 people got elected, and I think he was 5th maybe. So both of them left on very good terms. Mayor Randy Evans had nice things to say about both of them. He thought that both of them brought different types of experience that helped the city. Debbie, of course, retired school administrator, and Dan Call involved in business and accounting when he worked in his professional life. So we also want to mention that one of Jackson's long-term businesses, or part of their businesses, have closed. Greenleaf Florist, Jennifer,
no way.
over on Star Street. This is a 3-generation family business. There you see an exterior picture of Greenleaf Florist.
Yeah.
And they actually have 2 parts to Greenleaf Florist. One, of course, was the flower shop, and the other is the landscaping and mowing. The landscaping and mowing is going on. It has not closed. I want to make that very clear.
Okay.
The 3rd-generation owner of that, David Mercer, is continuing on this, but he did announce that the florist part of the operation is closing. His mom and the 2nd generation, Roxy Mercer, had run that in recent years. I remember being there 15 years ago to do a 100th anniversary story. And now, so they have 115 years of service in the city of Jackson at the time that business stopped, or at least the floral shop started. Do you remember the old Hood's Greenhouse? That was over there down on Broadway Street where the Holzer buildings are.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and it was the old-fashioned greenhouse. You saw it there with the windows and all, and the roof and all, the reflective roof. They moved to their current location on Star Street many years ago, but in the old days, Roxy Mercer, I think, was a Hood, and her parents, Mary Hood was her mother. They did Hood's Greenhouse, and Roxy got involved in the business. and has been a great ambassador. A lot of people did business with Roxy, but she has retired. David tried to keep it up, but his Facebook post, he also talked to our Trevor Bailey. He said that's not his thing.
Yeah.
Doing the
he's always
flowers
done
and the
more
bouquets
the landscaping
and all
part
like that.
of it.
But yes, he wants to continue with that. And so the business will remain in that location. He told our Trevor Bailey, our staff intern who does a lot of reporting out in the field for us, he told him that he is open to maybe renting that space to another floral shop or whatever, because it was kind of built for that. But for the time being, he's going to operate the landscaping business out of that as well.
Okay.
So, but once again, that's 115 years of business.
Wow.
So it's however you want to look at it. The business is not closing, but a part of the business has been ended for good. All right. So we talked about Cheryl Thiessen. We want to talk about a couple of other things. Coming up on Thursday, there's going to be a new exhibit at the Marquet Cultural Arts Center, Jennifer. It's going to be called Hidden Southeastern Ohio. And Dennis Reinhardt, there is one of his pictures. Dennis
does
is
an amazing job.
Dennis loves photography,
He
but more
does.
than that, he loves nature.
Yep.
And he doesn't have to go to the Yellowstone or the Smokies to be to get wildlife and outdoor photography.
That's right.
He goes around southeastern Ohio, probably not too far from his home out there in the Rock Ridge area there near Lake Catherine. And this was one of the pictures. This is one of the pictures that will be on display at the Marquet. His new exhibit, Hidden Southeastern Ohio, will be unveiled 7 o'clock this Thursday, January 6th, at the Marquet. It will be an opening night reception, and then it will be on display through most of the month.
So
of course, they
cool.
do the rotating exhibits, and I think Dennis has never been at the Marquet before. He's been a supporter.
Yes.
And I believe now that he is a new board member there of the Southern Hills Arts Council, along with our own James Hamilton. How about that? So you got some new faces on the board. You got some veterans that will continue there. And so, the torch is being passed to some new folks there. So it'll be exciting to hear what's happening with the Southern Hills Arts Council going forward. But the first big event is Dennis Reinhardt and his exhibit. It will be worth your while if you don't go to the opening night reception to visit sometime during the month. And we'll talk more about that on Thursday, too, as well as some other things that are happening at the Marquet. We want to tell you about some meetings that are happening, Jennifer, real quick.
Okay.
Because I know we got to get to the weather and some other things. The foster care and adoption meeting, we talked about that earlier. Want to remind you that's going to be Thursday, January 6th at 6 p.m. at the Assembly of God Church. That's at 420 Ralph Street. If you turn off East Main Street onto Ralph, it will be on your right, not very far off the block there, just down from Rowdy's a little bit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Behind Foster
On the other
Electric.
side of the street by Geiger Brothers. If
Yeah.
I'm helping through a location there. But that will be for anybody who is interested in getting involved in foster care or adoption, and there is a crying need for that.
That is so
everywhere, and that includes Jackson County. As far as other meetings, the Jackson County Commissioners will not be meeting tomorrow. They normally meet on the first two. They usually meet every Tuesday. Their first meeting will be the following Tuesday, January the 11th. Tonight, the Jackson City Board of Education will meet in special session at 6 o'clock. They're going to do two things. They're going to have an organizational meeting where they have their first meeting, they organize, they pick officers and do committees and like that. Their regular meeting will be later in the month, but they're going to do the organizational business tonight. There is a new member of the Jackson City Board of Education who hopefully will be present tonight, Bob Kite.
That's right.
Longtime Jackson City Schools employee, athletic director, assistant principal, teacher, coach, all those things. He got elected in the last election. He will be replacing another veteran, Alice Smith, who served many, many years. So in addition to the organizational meeting, they're going to have an executive session after that, and they're not going to take any action, from what I understand, but it's going to be to go over applicants for the position of school treasurer. Of course, Rachel Strasser had that job. She ended up resigning. There was a resignation agreement. Brenda Hill, former treasurer for the Jackson City Schools and the Wellston City Schools, has been doing that job on an interim basis. But she had retired and is not interested, I think, in doing that long term.
Right.
And so
just filling in.
They're going to be going over the applications. Okay, the Jackson County Republican Party, groups of the Jackson County Republican Party is going to be beaten the next two nights. Tonight at 6:30 p.m. at Wellston City Council. They have to appoint a at-large councilman an at-large councilman. No, I'm sorry, a second ward councilman and a fourth ward councilman. Now, there are two ladies that are currently serving in those positions. Maddie Vance got appointed to fill the position that Wayne Cosper had when Wayne resigned. However, Maddie didn't have her name on the ballot in the general election. And
Okay.
she, I presume, will be a candidate to be appointed, but they're going to have to appoint somebody for the new term now.
Gotcha.
Same situation for the fourth ward seat. The fourth ward seat, Lindley Carey, that's she's lived in Wellston for a long time, the former Lindley Walton, the wife of John Carey, who everybody knows.
Yep.
She's now down at Rio Grande, has a very important job down there. She is the fourth ward councilwoman. And once again, when she got appointed to fill out the unexpired term that ended at the end of December 31st, her name was not on the ballot in time. So they're going to have to appoint somebody for the fourth ward. It's not a slam dunk that it's going to be Maddie Vance and Lindley Carey, but my guess is that they will be among the applicants, may be the only applicants, but by law, it's an open
Sure.
situation. If anybody is interested in being the second ward councilman in the city of Wellston or the fourth ward councilman in the city of Wellston, they can show up at that meeting tonight, 6:30 p.m. at the Wellston City Building. And it'll be up to the Wellston City Caucus to make that choice. That's people on the Central Committee who live in Wellston. It's a handful of people, no more than 4 or 5.
Gotcha.
They will make that choice. Then the next night in Jackson at 5 p.m., that's Tuesday, January the 4th, at the Jackson County Juvenile Courtroom, the Jackson City Caucus of the Jackson County Central Committee will meet, and this is where they will pick a person to take the place of Debbie Biggs.
Okay.
Debbie, as I said, she was actually elected to the term, but she can't serve because she's moved from the city of Jackson. And so somebody will have to be picked to fill that third ward seat for the remainder of her term. And they're all 2-year terms, 2-year terms also in Wellston as well. And the only thing is you have to be a registered voter, you have to be a registered Republican, you have to live in the ward. If you have any question about that, you need to check with the Board of Elections. But
Sure.
once again, that position is open. And in this case, there isn't a carryover person that's already serving in that position as there is in Wellston. So it'll be interesting to see who gets picked in Jackson tomorrow night.
Yeah, it'll be like Christmas.
Kind of so. Okay, in the village of Colton, Mayor Kim Milliken announced this as for everybody that has interest in what goes on in Colton with the village council. They've always met, Jennifer, on the first and third Monday of every month. Now, sometimes they may not have a meeting. They may shift it around or whatever, depending on the need or the volume of business. But they have changed their meetings this year to the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So their first meeting will actually be, instead of tonight, it would have been tonight, it'll be tomorrow night.
Okay.
They always meet at the Colton Community Building on 2nd Street in Colton. That's right across from the post office if you're familiar with Colton. And Mayor Milliken, I know two issues that she's going to have to deal with. They have openings on council that they're going to have to fill that can be decided by council or by her if council doesn't decide. I'm guessing it will be her because I think she's short several council people between resignations and people that did not run to re-election.
Right.
So and that will be a big deal for her. The second thing is they are finishing up work on some improvement projects in Colton. They got money to do sewer projects, a bunch of other things. They got that neighborhood revitalization grant. There's still some work left to be done on that. So important work going on in Colton as well. All right. Well, there were some other things we were going to talk about, but I know we got to do the weather, and we want to talk about what happened to you on vacation. So we'll come back on Thursday and maybe talk about some of this other stuff we didn't get to today.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
James, did you have the weather pulled up there? Okay. So yeah, it's a bit chilly today. We've been blessed with some 60-some degree temperatures, so here we go. But so today is January 3rd already, and it's looking like partly cloudy skies today with highs around 35, lows dipping down to around 20. For tomorrow on Tuesday, a little bit better with highs of 44, lows of 31. And then a little bit of rain starts popping into the forecast on Wednesday, high of 47, low of 21. Thursday, we're calling for maybe a little chance of that S word.
Right,
fall out of the sky.
temperature is such that it could happen. And
Yes.
you notice there, if you were watching there
Don't
if you're watching there on your monitor, you saw some low teens there for the
Yeah.
overnight stuff. So
Yeah. It's
so
kinda,
so here we are. We're in the first week of January, and we can't be too disappointed with the weather. I know we've talked
no.
about these other bad things, COVID and everything, and all
Oh,
like
the
that,
weather's
but
been fantastic.
it's not been bad at all. It hit 60 a couple times last week. Incredible.
Yeah, Jamie and I. So we went on vacation over, like the day after Christmas. We took off and we went on just a really short cruise, and so it was funny because you get to talking to people, and they're like, "Oh, you're from Ohio." Oh, and I'm like, "No, it's like 65 degrees there, so it's really not. Don't feel sorry for us right now. It's not that bad."
No, I know part of you was maybe wishing 10 degrees and a blizzard so you could justify going on a cruise.
Yes,
when you're
exactly. So we could say, "Ha ha, here we are. We paid money for this," but no, it was fun. But no, the airport thing was what I was interested in. And I know that people have been seeing the news and these horrible flight cancellations and stuff. And we ran into many people that got stuck into that. And so we flew the day after Christmas. So many folks were headed to bowl games. So using either Columbus or Atlanta as a hub to switch planes, and their planes were all getting canceled, and it was just, I felt so sorry for them. And Miami and Fort Lauderdale are very close together, so like I overheard a lot of folks saying, "Oh yeah, well they found us a flight into Fort Lauderdale instead. We were supposed to fly into Miami or vice versa or whatever." So. But no, our flight down was fantastic. We went to Columbus. Just no problem. There was no one in the airport on Christmas Day. We flew out on Christmas Day. Got to Atlanta, jumped on the plane, no problem, did everything. By the way, spent Christmas Day night in Miami in Little Havana, and that was a blast. Those people down there, so it's very Cuban. We went to this really cool Cuban restaurant, and they were just having so much fun, and it was so relaxed, and like no one was all dressed up or anything. And but Little Havana is a part of Miami, Florida, and it's just kind of one street. They call it Calle Ocho, which is like 8th Street.
I'm sure it's one of the most bilingual cities in America.
Very much so. And it kind of concerned me a little bit because I was like, my Spanish is kind of rusty at this point. And, but no, everyone just speaks everything. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. But went to this Cuban restaurant. It was so amazing. And they had just musicians, and it was just so fun. It was alive, and it was just really a good time.
Wasn't even vacation. Hadn't even
No,
started
I hadn't
yet.
even started our vacation yet. So that worked out well. But flying back was a whole other story.
Okay.
So we got on the plane in Miami, and we were supposed to have a layover in Atlanta. And you're in trouble when the pilot comes on and you're up in the air and he says, "Well, folks, we're going to run into a few storms here, so just don't panic or anything. But flight attendants, I'm just going to go ahead and need you to sit down and buckle up." And I was like, oh, no.
Always nice. Always nice when you hear those things. We're going to have a little turbulence.
Yeah, the flight attendants will walk through pretty much anything. So when he's telling them to sit down and buckle up, you're in trouble. So yeah, there was a few, when it felt like you dropped like 7 miles. But so then we get to Atlanta, and we're getting ready to supposed to land, and he comes on and he's like, "Yeah, so we have a little issue. So the Atlanta airport has closed." And I'm like, "We're up in the air." He's like, "This horrible storm, they've closed the airport. But don't worry, because we have plenty of fuel to fly around up here for a while."
Okay.
Until they open again tomorrow.
And I'm like looking at Jamie like, what is going on? Like, are we going to have to land on a highway, or what's, what's happening? So we flew around for like 40 minutes. They finally let us land. And of course, if you've all ever flown through Atlanta, and I'm sure that you have, there are planes everywhere, coming and going and this way and that way. And when we landed, there was not an airplane on any runway anywhere. And I was like, this is going to be bad. So I looked down at my phone. It was like, "Flight canceled." I'm like, oh, God, great.
When you see the red,
It's like
when
the
you see
worst.
when you see the red canceled on those boards, I mean,
It's just the worst feeling ever. So, but I will say we were flying Delta. We landed, we're on the ground for maybe 5-10 minutes, and I got an update on my phone, and they had just automatically rebooked us onto another flight. So we didn't even have to go stand, because I asked someone at the gate, they were like, oh, you'll just need to go down to customer service. Now you can only imagine what that looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So we walked down to customer service, and it was like somewhere from Atlanta to Wellston, the line. Like we could have walked home faster. Mm-hmm. So anyway, luckily they rebooked us automatically. So that was good, but it was like 3 hours before then we took off again. So we ended up in the Delta Sky Mile Club, which is, I never been in there before. It's like the best kept secret at the airport. They had a buffet and free drinks and all kind of fun stuff. But anyway, but the guy at the Sky Miles desk wrote down the wrong gate on our tickets.
oh my.
So, you board it, blah, blah, blah. And mind you, this is like 3 hours we have to kill. So we're just sitting in there like eating and drinking and just chilling out, whatever. So we go to the gate and we're standing in line to get on the plane. And I look up and it's like says something about Florida. And I'm like, is this flight going to Columbus? And everyone was like, no. And I'm like, oh, where is our plane then? And Atlanta, you don't just get from one gate to the next real quick. So anyway, so we go flying down the terminal, like looking for our gate. Luckily, it finally pops up on my phone, the correct gate. This is after the guy had told us the wrong gate. And we get to it. This is after us sitting for 3 hours, just waiting for our plane to board. And they shut the door in our face.
And usually they won't reopen it.
They won't reopen it. I mean, it was like locked gate, like locked door.
Sorry,
and
Charlie.
I'm like, wait! As she was like shutting the door. And I'm like, they told us the wrong gate. And I'm like in tears at this point because I'm just like, no. And I'm like, I'm so sorry they told us the wrong gate. Like, I can show you. Like, he wrote it on my ticket. And she was like, are you kidding? And I was like, no. And I was like, I guarantee you that they sent other people to the wrong gate. And so one person looked at the other person and she's like, see if you can open it back up. So she like did this whole thing and like the combination, opened it, and she like yelled down, because if they had shut the door to the plane, you're really in trouble. And she was like, don't shut the plane door. There's more people. And so luckily they let us through.
Oh my.
That was after me like in tears and
right. Well,
whatever.
At least they didn't put you and Jamie out on the wing.
I
That might have
know,
been the
right?
next
We
thing.
would have had to.
That might have been the next thing.
But yeah, so we did make it back to Columbus like 4 hours late. But
yeah. Do you get about? I've flown Delta too at times. Don't you always get kind of a bad feeling when you got to stop at Atlanta?
yes.
I mean, even if it's a routine thing and there's not weather or something.
The problem with Atlanta is, and especially if you have to change concourses, I mean,
It's huge.
it's like you're on a train, you have to get from this one to this one. It's a good, I mean, even if you run, it could take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes to get from
Well,
one gate to another.
If you haven't,
Easy.
If you haven't flown, this is so confounding and illogical that this blows your mind. When there's very few direct flights, it seems like, if you're
Correct.
going to a certain place, especially
Correct.
when you're flying out of Columbus or Cincinnati,
Yep.
because there's bigger airports than those. But like with Delta, it doesn't matter where you're going. I think you're probably going to go through Atlanta.
You go through Atlanta because it's just their like main hub.
No,
and it is huge.
No, we've flown from Memphis to Minneapolis, and we had to go to Atlanta first.
That sounds about right.
Right. Isn't
Yeah.
that crazy?
You're just like, what?
Why do they do that? Because I think you're getting charged for the miles and everything, aren't you?
Probably.
But anyway, we're glad you're
But we
here.
did make it
You-
back.
You have made it back.
Yes,
you have
we
made
did
it back,
make it
and,
back.
and you will probably think long and hard before you book another flight, right?
I'll go anyway.
That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do to get there. I know.
But it is funny. Like when it's happening to you at the time, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm never again. And then you're like, well, that was an adventure and we survived it. So we'll do something else here soon.
Right. Well, I did want to mention. One other thing, if I could, on
sure.
the sports side. I know we're running just a little long, but I need to mention this because of a time element. And Cameron Zinn, we've talked about her before.
Yes.
An outstanding athlete with the Vinton County
Yes.
Vikings ladies basketball team. Also a great volleyball player, was on that volleyball team that did so well. And she was on the team last year that went to the state and all. Well, she's a senior this year. That's her if you're, looking at the picture there on the right, putting up a jump shot. Cameron has been nominated as one of the top 20 small forwards in all of Ohio.
Wow.
By a website called SB Live. I'm not familiar with them, but they do sports coverage on the high school level, and they're doing something. I'm not sure where they're at on this, but each of the 5 positions on the basketball court, small forward is one of them. They're making it a fan-friendly, fan participation thing. They have a website where they come up with 20 nominations for best small forward, best center, best point guard, etc. They're doing small forward now. Cameron Zinn is one of 20 that have been picked as one of the top small forwards in the state. They decided by a fan vote. And that's why I'm telling you about Cameron Zinn.
That is so cool.
Cameron Zinn is one of the best all-around players that you'll find anywhere. She is averaging 10.3 points a game, 14.6 rebounds a game, 5.1 steals per game, 4.9 assists per game, 2.3 blocks per game. She does it all. A great,
scrappy little thing.
A great all-around athlete. As talented as she is, and the stats back her up, her top attributes would probably be her work ethic and her competitiveness. She just will not be denied.
That's
a great
awesome.
player, and she is deserving of attention. If you want to vote for Cameron Zinn, or consider any of the others, there's a couple other young ladies from our area on there as well.
Sure.
One from Meigs, I think, and one from Ross Huntington. You can go to the SB Live website, but we have got a link via the Telegram to that. And if you go to our Telegram Facebook, it's near the top. I just posted that yesterday. You can hit that link and see where you can vote for Cameron Zinn. Her name's at the very bottom because it's alphabetical. But that's where you want to go.
Well, she'll
and
be
vote
hard
for
to
it.
find.
And here's the thing. You can vote as many times as you want. You're just not blocked out because you voted once.
Gotcha.
So vote early and vote often. We don't want to say that for the regular election. But I think the deadline is January the 5th at 11:59 p.m.
Okay.
And so we want to congratulate Cameron because no matter what happens, great honor to be named as one of the top 20 in the state. And she certainly deserves it. She is the daughter of Erica Hayes Zinn, who is the school treasurer in Vinton County, and at one time had a bunch of records at Vinton County High School as a basketball player, was an All-American at Shawnee State, and she's not exactly like her mom as far as her strengths are, but just a chip off the old block as far as the production and as far as just going at it as hard as anybody.
Yep.
So congratulations to Cameron.
Super cool.
And go out and support her because she has earned this distinction. And who knows, she might be named the best small forward in Ohio. And we'll have something else to talk and write about.
That would be great. Love that.
All right. Well, very good. I'm sorry we went over, Jennifer, but
that's okay. We had a lot to catch up on,
That's what
didn't
happens when you go off and fly away for a week or so.
No, there's so much going on, and we need to keep everybody informed. Oh, by the way, happy birthday to Luna Lambert, who is age 3. She's from Oak Hill, and she was busted by Grandma and Pappy today. So
Right. And hey,
We've got another birthday today
We
too, Jennifer.
who?
Kathy Smalley wanted to let us know that today is Chip's 77th birthday.
Happy birthday,
how about
Chip.
that? Chip, everybody knows the Smalleys. Everybody
That's
knows
right.
Chip. Been such a great person in the community. Had the business downtown for many years and still takes an interest in what's going on. He's got a great family, 3 kids, a lot of grandchildren. Chip's one of my favorites. So happy birthday.
Us too.
Happy birthday, Chip Smalley.
Hi, Chip.
Hey, we want to remind you also, one more thing, Jennifer, sorry. This is basketball season, and they're playing right now. It's not snowing yet.
That's
and
right.
so, pay attention to our basketball schedule. We'll post stuff, but we're doing basketball broadcasts, boys and girls basketball. Our next broadcast game will be Tuesday, tomorrow night. The Oak Hill Oaks boys are playing Lucasville Valley, one of the top teams in the SOC Division II. That game is at Oak Hill, and it will be on the radio. WCJO 97.7 FM, Keith Davis and Brian Howell.
Very
broadcasting.
Good. Love it.
All right, very good.
Always something going on, right?
Good night, Irene.
That's right. Well, Pete, thank you so much. And James, thank you so much. And welcome back. And congratulations on your new board appointment at the Arts Council. That's
Thank
very
you.
cool. Yeah.
See, you do something like that, we'll have to put you on TV
I know.
in front of the camera.
Exactly. That's what happens. So have a great day, everyone. Happy New Year to you all. And let's make this a good one. So we'll be back tomorrow with more stuff. So have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.